Hi, welcome back to Future Fast, and I hope you've enjoyed every conversation we have. And those of you who are here for the first time, you must have missed the first part of our conversation with Ashish Dutta. And today, the writer Ashish Dutta is what we are going to talk to. But you should go and listen to the first part of the conversation where he does share his journey and also talks about some bit of the writing part, which we'll hopefully elaborate in this conversation. And for the rest of you, I hope you all subscribe to it and enjoy the ride. Ashish, once again, welcome to Future Fast, and thank you so much for making time to share your journey with us.
Thank you
And
so much, Nanjinder. I'm so happy to be here.
so, when did the journey of Ashish, the writer, start?
I think the day when I remember in the school, I thought I used to write very well. And I used to write with very bombastic English. And there's a new teacher came and he gave an essay and he told me, and I was expecting, 18 out of 20 or at least 16 out of 20, but 5 out of 20. And I was so disappointed. I went to him and I said, but you don't think my writing is good? And he looked at me and said, you look rubbish. You write rubbish. And I think that was the turning point. And he said, why don't you read? What do you read? I said, I read a lot of books. I said, yeah, you read a lot of books, but you don't give focus to how the sentences are formed and written. And he said, who's your favorite author? I said, Arthur Conan Doyle. And he said, have you ever read an Arthur Conan Doyle book where you got to fetch the dictionary? I said, no. Have you read a very complicated sentence in Arthur Conan Doyle? I said, I have never realized it. He said, go and read him again. You'll see how lucid, and use the word, how lucid the writing is. Your writing has to be lucid. Okay? If there is one goal that you want to achieve in writing, is that the reader should just float through your writing without any kind of. So don't do jugglery. Okay, keep things simple. So that was the beginning, perhaps.
And what was the first published effort from your end? I mean, school journal or something?
See, published effort, school journal was always there, but everybody writes in school, and then it ends over there, or a college, and it ends over there. But when in Calcutta, we have a large extended family. And in fact, I started a family, your journal, okay, little magazine, okay. Little magazine is something not, I haven't seen much about it in Bangalore. Maybe I have missed it, okay. But the culture of little magazine was very much there in Bengal.
You've
And
got to explain what is that culture of little magazine.
okay, little magazine is that people from a mohalla, pada or a mohalla, your locality, okay, comes out with a magazine every month or every 2 months or every 3 months. So people contribute and write. And sometimes you go and stand on the street corner and try to give that magazine away. The local shopkeeper, the Kirana store will give a sponsorship to that magazine and other things. So that's the grassroots culture of writing that happens. And in one of the stories in my
So every
book,
residential colony pretty much does that?
there was a culture of not every, And I
Good.
don't know whether the culture exists or to what extent it exists now. I wouldn't know that. Okay. Uh, but then you will get a glimpse of it in one of the stories in my in my latest book. One story uh, is there where the little magazine is being talked about. So, little magazine is kind of what you call a nursery. Okay,
Mm, mm.
uh, is what a local uh, football or a cricket ground, okay, is to the one day team of India. A little
Right.
magazine is to the literary culture of that particular language.
Right. No,
Uh,
I can see the value of it clearly, but how prevalent was it, and is it still prevalent practice there? And did you bring that practice to your adopted city?
okay. Uh, no, I only half-hearted. There was a half-hearted attempt, and so I started an extended magazine for the family. And of course, I had to compromise because somebody thought he or she writes beautifully, but that wasn't really readable. But then that has to be there because you can't, rub on somebody's ego. Okay, those are all parts of it. Uh, when I came to Bangalore, I actually started uh, your management magazine, okay,
Hmm.
called Change. This was
Ah,
completely towards change management.
I
It was
remember
completely focused
change.
on
Yes,
change management.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
change management. And I did it as a desktop. Desktop means, desktop calendars. Have you seen the calendars that sit on your desk?
Yes,
And
yes,
you just each month you just roll over that. So it
correct.
came in that format.
Right.
Okay. And we had, you know, uh, quite some months of circulation before uh, my focus had to be shifted, to running business, and I was doing too much of traveling during that time. But I started this magazine. It was appreciated, by the way, even by the Professor Sadugopan. He said, Ashish, what happened to you, that Change magazine? Sometimes you do. I said, Professor, it's not there anymore. Like most magazines, they
Right.
vanish. Okay, but then I had interviewed some very good people in the area of process management. Okay, I remember uh, Colin Coulson Thomas. Colin Coulson Thomas was kind of a guru during that time on business process. And he came to Mumbai, and I attended his workshop in Mumbai. And I told him I have a magazine called Change, and I would like to take an interview of yours after this. So he gave me an interview. So many aspects of those. So that was the management part of it. Then I love traveling. Okay, I think I spent all my money on traveling, most of it. Okay, traveling is expensive. Uh, and then I started writing on travel, and this is what caught up. Uh, I've been writing in mainly newspapers, that is print media. Okay,
So
uh,
when was the first published print
must be
article?
somewhere 22 to 24 years ago. I don't recall when.
Okay.
Roughly more than 20 years. Okay, around 22 to 24 years ago. My first article came out in Deccan Herald, I think it was. Okay. Uh, then I started writing in Deccan Herald and the Hindu, and then in inflight magazines. There were a number of inflight magazines then, and most of the inflight magazines had my articles. Okay.
Mm.
So that was the journey. It was good because For the first time, I thought, somebody is paying me for writing. Okay. And also for my photographs, they were paying me. Okay. When a writing comes, a photograph comes, they pay both for the writing and for the pictures as well. I said, that's good. And then I started writing in, there is something called syndication service in publication.
Right.
Okay. You put your writing in a syndicate and some editor will pay and pick up from that syndicate. So there were a couple of syndication service internationally. Okay. So that's how some of my writings got picked up by and like that. Yeah. So um, one sec. Okay. Sorry. So, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. It
Okay.
got picked up from where? You just want the
So,
syndication.
syndication, right. So, I used to put my articles on syndication, and I would get to know that my article got published somewhere when I used to get those days a check in post in dollar. Okay. So, uh, those were happy moments. You get in the post box, you don't always get a check to you, and that too in dollar.
Right.
It's
Right.
only that my concern was when I go to the bank would ask, where did you get this dollar from? Okay. But then, yeah. So that's how the writing took over. Okay. Uh, and I love traveling. And in traveling, I love to go beneath the skin and, talk to the people, experience their ways and other things. You wouldn't believe, Nanju, that nowadays homestay is a rage, in
Correct.
India. Okay. Germany had a homestay concept perfected like the Germans do. And they call it Mitwohn Mit means together, with wohn means living, central, living together central is a centralized system where, and mind you, these are all before internet or just about internet area was coming.
Right.
Yeah, you go to a place, you go to a Midtown Central in a railway station or in and you say, I want to stay in Hanover. Okay, I'm going to Hanover Fair. I'm going to stay in Hanover, and I want to stay in a Midtown Central. So they would find out from their and they would say, okay, you can go and stay over here. This is the cost. This is this. And they are all vetted things. And I have stayed in those Midtown Central. I've stayed with an elderly German lady, okay, in her apartment, all during my stay during the Hanover Messe, Hanover Fair in Hanover. Then I stayed in Frankfurt, and there is a story in my book on that part,
Mm.
okay, of Frankfurt. Um, so I've been staying in homestays abroad, and then Delhi, in fact, had a homestay culture uh, as early as mid 80s.
Mhm.
Okay. And, Delhi, there is a place called Chittaranjan Park in Delhi, which is largely was a Bengalis were settled over there.
Right. Right.
And many Bengali homes in Chittaranjan Park, Greater Kailash, okay, they would have one room and a for homestay.
Ah,
And during those times, I was on shoestring budget, and I stayed in homestays over there. So homestay, when people say homestay is the new thing, I said, no, homestay is not new. I've been staying in homestays since the mid 80s. Yeah. Uh, the good thing about homestay is that you get to know the people. You are actually living with people,
correct.
unlike in a hotel room where you wake up and you don't know where you are. You don't know
Right.
which hotel you are in because everything looks the same. Yeah. So, and stories came out. of those. So I had those stories in mind, etc. And then I thought that someday I should put everything together and write a book. So the book
Did you ever
is the
write in
last one.
Bengali?
I do write in Bengali.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
I have written but very strangely, I have written in a very well-known newspaper in Bangladesh, not in Calcutta. Yeah.
How
Uh,
did that happen?
oh, okay, because I wrote to them and they said, yeah, you can. And I got to know of some people and they knew that I write in English. And he said, Dada, why don't you write in Bengali? So I said, what would be interested in? So I've been writing in one newspaper and one online portal in Bengali. Yeah. And that I write in Bengali. Yeah.
And that's business that you write about, or is it?
No, travel and yeah, other related. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And when did your first published work happen then?
Yeah. So my newspaper and magazine writing, which I say I write professionally because the editors pay me money. As
Correct.
simple as that. Okay. Uh, so are three broad categories. So one is travel, one is music. Music is a big part of my life. So I have several writings on music. And then the rest, I would say the miscellaneous cultural aspect. I may write on philosophy a bit, I may write on poetry, I may write on language, I may write on socio-political issues. So those are all other cultural part. Yeah.
So when you write about uh, travel, it is very understandable, right? What you write about. But music, what do you write about music? And what kind of music?
Actually, Nanjunda, I would say travel is not so understandable if I can substantiate a bit. One is you write about a destination. Okay. So that's understandable. You have gone someplace and you write about that place. But I also write about tourism. And I have written about sensitive, uncomfortable subjects like apartheid in Indian tourism. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And which the editors were gay to publish it. And I remember one was a lead article, okay, uh, in Sunday, which is Indians Not Welcome. I still remember the title. And I wrote a series on that. And Indians Not Welcome in India. I'm not talking of Indians Not Welcome elsewhere. Then I wrote about uh, the ugly side of Indian tourists. Indians are a boisterous lot. There was a where, I think a couple of years ago, that one cruise ship in Australia or somewhere, everybody complained because there was an Indian contingent of there was some corporate A, okay, and they hired half of the ship, okay, half of the
Mhm.
accommodation in that luxury cruise ship, and they created ruckus for the rest of the people. And it came out in the media, Australian media and other media. Well, then you had a case of in Bangkok, Indian family was caught. After they checked out, their bags were ripped open. They had fans, they had this, they had whatever they could find in the. So that's one. But I also say in that article that Indians are not alone over there. I mean, Chinese have a worse name than Indians as tourists. So I wrote a
Yeah.
series of articles on these uh, slightly not so palatable subjects as well.
Right. I mean, more about travel writing for the news than travel writing for
Travel writing, yes,
a
and
coffee
more on
table
the
book, if you. Yeah.
awareness part.
Right.
How can you be more sustainable in your travel? I've written a
Hmm.
series on that, many. how to be more sustainable when you travel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And especially, I love to go to the jungles. And
Oh well, in the while you talk about travel, we had a guest called Neha. She runs a business called Planetable.
okay.
It's a business for travel business,
Uh-huh.
mostly for disabled. She
Wow.
also
Wow.
tries to mix it up with regular people
Uh-huh.
so that they understand what it takes to be disabled and also what are the challenges about disabled and all that. So, and for the listeners or audience, if you have missed it, just look up for Neha's podcast and
Wow.
check it out.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
please,
That's
Ashish.
fantastic. So I write on, if you are going to a jungle, don't treat it as a zoo. I mean, that the tiger is not waiting to show up for you.
So
Okay. And it's absolutely perfectly okay not to see a tiger.
true.
Yeah. And enjoy the journey. Yeah. So on those aspects, that is travel. Yeah. Let's come to music. One part of, I've written on various aspects of music. Um, uh, the very well-known Sarod maestro, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, who was, the A of Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji's, with Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji.
Yeah.
Ustad Ali Akbar Khan's name is always there. Okay, he has his Duke A in San Rafael in California. His commemorative article was my article, so I felt very fortunate. I felt very fortunate. I have heard Ustad Ji sitting just across, within 5 feet from me. Okay. Uh, so music is, my wife is a professional musician. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, she even has a album with Saregama India. It's a world music
Okay.
album with a very well-known pianist, keyboard player. You may have heard of Stephen Devassi.
All
Yeah.
right.
So she is into whole-time music.
Wow.
Uh, I have been kind of an amateur musician, so I'm trained in classical music, but I don't say I'm trained in it because what I have gone through, you don't call it training. Okay.
It's
So
I assume it is Hindustani classical.
Hindustani classical.
Which instrument?
Yeah. Sitar. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah. So,
And is that the same instrument your wife is a
no, my wife is a vocalist. Is a
vocalist? Okay.
vocalist. Yeah, vocalist. Yeah, she's a vocalist. So, then my wife and my son also has been trained in music, and he also has got, he's a part of that album, so he also sings. Yeah, and he has been one of the youngest music journalists of India, published music journalist of India. And
Wonderful.
some of the names he has interviewed and published are Ustad Zakir Hussain and Sonu Nigam and A.R. Rahman and yeah. So so
Yeah,
music
these
is
are all
very much there in
biggest
the
names in
house.
the music
These are the
industry.
biggest names in the industry, and they have given interview to a school boy.
Oh,
He did this when he was a school boy, and they got published in mainstream newspapers. Yeah. So music has always been there. Funnily, we were staying in a rented house in Koramangala. Uh, okay, and it's a small house with a big lawn. And when the second Tanpura came, Tambora, you call it.
yes, yes.
And we have these huge Tamboras, not the small ones. The second Tambora came from Miraj. Miraj is a place in Maharashtra where they are famous for making musical instruments. Uh, we had to think either Tambura stays or one of us have to go out. We didn't have space. And at one point of time in our house, and even now, I think we have big, small, medium, 2 to 3 keyboards, 2 tambora, 1 sitar, 3 harmoniums, 1 violin, a full drum kit.
So
Uh,
to do
yeah,
an orchestra, you just need artists. The
yeah,
complete
you need artists,
instruments
complete
are there.
artists. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So that's how I've been into music from, you know, uh, pretty, yeah,
So,
young
and
age.
you
So,
write about what artists, performances, or do you
okay,
talk
good.
about
I write
commentaries
about,
on ragas and such? Or
no,
what's your
I write about artists. Okay. Uh, I write about known and unknown artists. I have done a series of writing in different places on street musicians. So I'm very passionate about that particular thing, which in English is called basking.
Hmm,
They are called baskers in English. Is a street musician, and I lament that the culture of street music is diminishing in India, and is because the cityscape does not give space for street music. Whereas if you go to, especially Europe, you find a thriving street music scenario.
right.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
smaller towns in India actually
Smaller towns in
have.
India do have. Yeah. Even now, you wouldn't believe that if, in front of a house, if a guy goes with a big ox, with a bull, and playing the nadaswaram, with a bull,
Yeah,
he may be
yeah.
collecting money. But I say, okay, street music is still alive. Okay.
Well,
He's playing
actually,
nadaswaram and he's playing a raga, mind you. Yeah,
I grew up in Bangalore, so those days
yeah,
you could actually hear really well played music.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
later on, I've seen people saying first give him money and send, otherwise it's noise. So unfortunately, yeah, it's gone both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a, I don't know, in Maleshwaram area, on a slight hillock kind of a thing, there's a Hanuman temple over there. Okay. And I remember I gave a small concert over there. Okay. In that temple. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Uh, it was organized by somebody. Yeah. So, and this whole culture where you go to a temple and you find somebody singing or playing or is so beautiful, and I'm passionate about keeping that culture,
Uh,
you know. uh,
well, it used to be there as I remember, but uh, I can't say whether it still exists because my going to temples has become so few. So,
I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, because my wife has a connection with many artists, many of the very well known artists, you don't get to know, but she once said, look, in near Bull Temple Road, okay, that is mm, Baswantagudi
Basungudi. Yeah.
area, okay. So and so is coming, playing a flute. Mind you, he's the top flutist of the country. Okay, we are talking of Rakesh Chaurasia, okay, Hari Prasad ji's nephew.
Mm.
Okay, and Rakesh is today among the busiest international artists of India today, uh, and he's coming there. I said, where? He said, give the location, but I don't know. So we went, we parked the car somewhere, started to hunt for that place. And said, this is a temple, okay, over there. So we went to a temple. You wouldn't believe, in Baswantagudi, there's a temple, and beside the temple is a tree, is a big space, and they created a small dais on the tree below that, and Rakesh Chaurasia playing over there in the temple. And it's so magnificent, you know, sitting in a temple complex and listening to
Oh,
music.
well, it used to be like that. I grew up in Basungudi, so
Acha,
my
okay.
father used to take me to. I mean, I've heard the biggest of the names of music,
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
a ticketed show. You just
Hmm.
walk in, sit, and you listen to the biggest of the names,
Right, right, right.
biggest of the names in
Hmm.
all three shows. So, I mean, pretty much grew up like that. So, never
That
thought
culture.
you have to actually pay and buy ticket to listen to good music.
Yeah, yeah.
And paying a ticket was always for those rock shows which people came from
Right,
outside. But
right,
the
right,
best of the Indian stars, it was always a free show.
right,
I mean,
right,
of course,
right.
then there were ticketed shows as well.
Hmm.
But I don't live in Basangudi anymore, so I kind of missed that part. But I think it's amazing that it still continues. I was actually cut off. I mean, you just made me recall.
Yeah. So I'm passionate about bringing music closer, you know, to people, to everyday life. Okay. Uh, I was in Calcutta, uh, I think a year and a half ago, where we had and suddenly I recorded these Vaishnavas. They come, Hare Krishna. They do, not the ISKCON people.
Got it.
Okay, they
The
are individual.
Chaitanya.
Yeah, not the ISKCON people, but they are singing minstrels. Okay, and they come from door to door, and people give some money and this and that. So
Oh,
that
that still
culture,
continues, is it?
oh,
These were the
that's still there.
Chaitanya
I was
Prabhu's.
Chaitanya Prabhu's the Baul tradition we have. If
Oh,
you
that's
go
still
to
there?
if you go to Tagore's Shantiniketan, okay, which is about 100 kilometers away from Calcutta, okay, you would find a lot of Baul over there.
Oh,
Yeah,
still.
who are, yeah,
Okay.
still there. Yeah, and that culture is there. So wanted to see that that culture is still preserved. I remember me and my wife, long time back, very long time back, went to Jaisalmer, and on the sand dunes there was a guy with a small harmonium, okay, and he was playing and singing. And my wife said, "Look, he's singing Rag Marwa." Okay, and in that high pitch, they have this high pitch voice,
All
and it's absolutely marvelous. It was about the time of the setting sun. You're on sand dunes, and
right.
everything you can see is the
Was he
sun.
a trained musician practicing
They
there,
they they
rehearsing?
are all they have this in Rajasthan. This because my wife interacts with some of these people who sing those you know Rajasthani folk songs, and
Hmm.
they are all basically trained in house.
Okay.
Yeah, uh, and
So it's like they
so
just grow up with that. It's
they
not
grew
that they
up with
actually
that.
go to a proper school and
No, they grow up with
not a
that
structured
because
learning.
music
Okay.
still has been within the Bab Dada, like that, the father to son to uncle
Oh,
to
it is still there like that?
nephew. It's still there like that, and that's how they, yeah, uh, the music is there. So
And your writing, basically, you try to explore these kind of things and you write
I
about
try
them.
to write about street
And these
music.
are
I
published in the newspapers and magazines.
absolutely, yeah, newspapers and
Never thought
magazines.
of compiling them into some kind of a collection of essays and
Now you are saying you are giving me ideas. In
okay.
fact, my wife has said that why don't you write a on music part, because music is very desperate. I have written about pure classical. Uh, then I wrote about the gharana, which is my own gharana. I come from my gharana is called the Maihar gharana or Saini Maihar gharana.
Mayer, okay.
Maihar, which
I
is,
actually went to that place.
you went to Maihar. So I wrote about Maihar, okay,
Okay.
in one of the, and about a gharana as well. Okay, so it was a travel come music piece. So I combined travel and music when I wrote about
Hmm.
my art. Yeah. And then I write about street musicians. I write about musicians. We lost a very good, brilliant tabla player in COVID. I wrote an obituary for him. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, I in COVID, I took with one of the most prolific mandolin players of Bollywood. and he is the man who actually is instrumental in having the mandolin festival. They had mandolin festival just before COVID, the third mandolin festival in Goa. In fact, the
Oh, I
first
remember.
mandolin festival happened in Bangalore, in fact. So he is the person behind mandolin festival. So we spoke about mandolin, about how mandolin came to India. Okay, through
I
what
heard
process?
Mandolin Srinivas when he was 8 years old.
Yeah, I have seen him absolutely in front. Amazing, isn't he? Yeah. So,
Very
so,
unfortunate.
so very unfortunate. In fact, my son, uh, he witnessed in Cologne. He was studying in Germany, and he was just somehow or other saving money. And whatever money he saves, he went to the last concert of Shakti in Cologne,
Oh,
and that was one of his last concerts, U. Srinivas's last concerts in Cologne with
mm,
Shakti.
mm.
In fact, so I do stories on an instrument. Okay, so this is so my spectrum of writing about music is quite wide that way. I write about even film music, like uh, SD Burman has been my favorite subject, and some couple of years ago we had 100 years of SD Burman. So many of the magazines and newspapers picked up my stories on SD
Yeah,
Burman.
for one, always used to argue with some of my friends who are very R.D. Burman fans that I thought R.D. Burman was the most overrated and S.D. Burman was the most underrated musician.
See, these are happy arguments that go on.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think he was few notches above everybody else. So I wonderful. So
Yeah. So
how so bring you back to what was the first published book?
yeah.
Uh, was that the ERP book? Was the first published one?
No, first published where I have been there is the ERP book. It's
Right.
a hardcore ERP book. The second is this is a story, short stories. These are short stories. Okay. It's called Under the Urban Tree, where is a compilation of short stories by different people. This actually came out as a fruit of a long literary workshop come meet, and said, let's do it this way. And I think the person who chose, you have Shiny Abraham, who is actually the person behind Bangalore Lit Fest.
Right.
Okay. At the end, she actually went through the stories and she gave her, comments on that. So the third, in fact, I wrote a book which I don't know whether this year or there. This is a compilation of poetry. It's my book and it's available on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's called Musings.
We'll have all these links are given below this
Yeah,
podcast. So please go
Musings.
ahead
It's
and
it's a
explore
very
each of them.
it's a very thin book, and poetry is something you essentially write for yourself. Okay.
So you write poetry in Bengali or English, or it is
This
both?
is English. This is English. Yeah, but I write also in Bengali. But I haven't published. I published Bengali in some magazine here and there, not really regularly. Yeah, and then finally the book which came out, which is a full-fledged book. It's called Gandhi and the London Cabby. This is a compilation of 10 stories. All the stories came out of the travels, but then they are largely human interest stories, and this is available in Amazon, in paperback in India, and in Kindle worldwide. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And yeah, this link is also there. So go ahead
Yeah.
and it's very easy reading and very nice. And it also kind of gives you a little insight into Ashish's mind. because it touches upon various aspects of life and spirituality and I think general interest and human interest, particularly coming from it's all first person narrative and very easy reading. So and also true stories. And some of the stories also hover around novelistic approach. So perhaps I was just wondering, will your next work be a novel? Because you look like you have a whole lot of material.
I didn't get through your last question,
Oh, well, I was
Arjun. Yeah.
saying that is the next work, published work, will be a novel because reading your short stories looks like you have a whole lot of material to put a novel together.
Yeah, actually, novel writing is very tedious in the first place, and you need a lot more discipline. Yeah. So, yeah, writing a book, I realized how much of hard work and discipline is involved. Creativity and other things are one part, but hardcore discipline, you know, is what is required
But you
for
have
this.
been a professional writer, if we can say that, right,
Yeah.
for a long time. So I think you are probably better placed than most who otherwise aspire to write.
Hopefully. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah.
So what can we expect from the writer Ashish for the future?
I wouldn't know. Maybe there is some A that somebody said that why don't you reproduce the whole book, this book in Bengali? Uh, because, Nanju, uh, Bengali publishing industry is pretty big. And if you go by the publishers, you would know that the same book in Bengali sells more
Oh,
than in English. Yeah, yeah. And I have, uh, especially in LitFest, where the publishers talk, and multiple times they said that whether it is Bengali or Marathi or even Tamil, um, uh, book selling is, the numbers are much higher. Maybe the realization per book in terms of commercial realization per book is much less,
yeah.
but the number of books sold are much higher in these three literary genres. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you are interested in promoting uh, your language, books in your
Yep.
language and other
Yep.
things. So I also, for instance, at any point of time, if I read 2 or 3 books, that's what I read at any point of time. One will be the Bengali book.
All right.
Yeah. So because that keeps me, grounded to, and I don't do it as a discipline. I just love to read. Yeah, Bengali books. And I urge people to actually read books in their own language,
So
whosoever I meet.
yeah, I make it a point to read at least one Kannada book in a year,
Mhm,
uh,
mhm,
and my and so far it's more like I borrow from my father and
mhm,
read. But yes, I also started buying because they're very interesting work happening even in Kannada, uh, the literature space. I don't follow as regularly as I would like to, but there is a lot of work happening, and there's another effort that which our common connect Achyuta and I are working on. So there we hope
mhm.
to do more on that front. So wonderful, Ashish. So before we close, I want to ask you: are there writers, authors who you recommend for people who wish to be a professional writer, right? Who aspire to publish their work? Do you recommend some writers that they should read? Uh, or that have inspired you from your side, and perhaps that could be a motivation, and also some tips from you are pretty much a professional writer. So, what kind of tips you would like to give for those who aspire to be that?
I think this when I did a course, okay, on fiction writing long time back, out of which one that small thin book came out. Uh, the important part, and I've written this in my as an introduction in my current book, is also habitually you have to plant your butt and write. Okay, and there is a feeling that writing is very creative. Sometimes that comes to you and you write day and night, and thereafter it vanishes and you don't write. And when the inspiration comes, that is one part of the story, but that is not the major part. Majority of the writers, okay, there are fantastic writers who wrote that way. Okay, for instance, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's his magnum opus Maknavi. Rumi is one of the greatest poets of all time. Rumi gave the world the what you call the whirling dervishes. The dervishes who. Okay. Now Rumi
Turkish.
between Matnavi, he was silent for 2 years or 3 years. He didn't, and then suddenly he started. But I would rather go by the hardcore method of Rabindranath Tagore. He would write, he would make it a point to write every day, rain, hail, or storm, like a regimentation, okay, that he put his life into, a regimented writing. And believe me, most of the writers will tell you that you need that regiment of writing every day. Stephen King writes, he has to write 3,000 words every day, rain, hail, or storm.
Wow.
Okay, that makes Stephen King. Okay, and most of the writers have to be extremely diligent in writing. Yeah, and that is what I have learned from others, from great writers. I'm sharing that. Okay. Number two is, I think that when you read differently, ultimately you got to get your own voice, your own style, yeah, of writing. And third is that you take a 3 months old writing, and if you are still in love with it, not good enough. Most of my writings, after 3 months, I said, yeah, did I write this? And so this constant endeavor to improve and do it better. Yeah.
Oh, on that, I remember Stephen Zweig, that German writer. He says that he used to write 1,000 pages, and before he sends it out to his editor, he has to reduce it to 300 pages.
300, absolutely.
So he would say that he values his readers, so he doesn't want even one wasteful word in it. So,
Ernest Hemingway has said, the first draft is shit. That's Ernest Hemingway. And people fall in love with their first draft. Okay, I have seen. Okay. So I say, so take it. If Ernest Hemingway's first draft was shit, mine is definitely shittier.
Wonderful. So, with Ashish, is there a influence on your writing from your entrepreneurial journey, which is perhaps like almost half your life you've been an entrepreneur now, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how much of your entrepreneurial journey has influenced your writer artist?
Maybe entrepreneurial journey makes you more independent minded. Okay. At the same time, you realize that the world is interdependent. So any evolution, evolution of a single life is usually from dependence. When you are a child, you are completely dependent. When you become adolescent, you start thinking, I am independent. And then you grow to a level of maturity, you realize it's all interdependent. Okay. So I think in my writing, this interdependency, and with that comes the multidisciplinary aspect. You see life in term of sociologically, you see life individually, psychologically. Okay, you see life as from a nation's point of view also. So and all other aspects of life, the aesthetic aspect of life, the commercial aspect of life, and you see they are all kind of interconnected. Yeah. And it's a celebration of that interconnectedness, that perhaps has come from the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur, has to have like even Vishnu's 4 hands are not enough for an entrepreneur. You need Durga's 10 hands, 10 arms. One managing the balance, one managing the cash flow, the other managing the people, the third managing the technology, the fourth managing whatever, the government policies, so yeah. So yeah.
Wonderful. In fact, one can get a good understanding of that with the new book of Ashish, where it's Gandhi and the cab driver. It's a one story, but that's also the title of the book. So go for it. The links are given below, and I'm sure you will enjoy each of that. And also follow Ashish. All the links are given right below this podcast. And once again, if you're not subscribed to Future Fast yet, do it now. And Ashish, once again, thank you so much for writing, keep writing, and also doing this with us. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
the
My
listeners
pleasure.
and
My
audience,
pleasure.
do come back. We're going to get Ashish back to talk about his perspective on the future very soon. Thank you once again. Enjoy the ride.
Thank you,
Thank you, Ashish.
Narendra. It's such a pleasure to be.